You don't miss them the way you think you do. You miss the version of yourself that existed when their attention made the world feel safe. And that's why letting go hurts. It feels like you're losing a person, but you're also losing an identity. Stay with me, because in this Carl Jung philosophy journey about releasing someone without pain, we're going to expose the hidden machinery behind heartbreak, projection, the shadow, the inner image, the addiction to almost, the fear of emptiness, and then we'll rebuild you from the inside so the ache stops owning you. Before we begin, a quick favor that truly helps keep the Paradox Garden alive. Subscribe, hit like, and leave a comment. It genuinely helps the channel keep making deeper videos like this. All right, no fluff. Let's go straight in. When people say I can't let them go, what they usually mean is, I can't let go of what they made me feel about myself. That sentence is uncomfortable because it shifts the focus from the other person to the interior landscape where the real war is happening. Jung would say, the psyche is not a single voice, it's a council. The one who speaks loudest after loss is often the most frightened part of you, not the wisest. There is a younger self inside you that believes love equals safety. There is a protector inside you that believes abandonment equals danger. There is a performer inside you that believes being chosen equals being worthy. And when the relationship ends, those inner figures don't grieve politely. They panic, they argue, they bargain, they rewrite history, they invent futures, they try to drag you back to the last moment you felt held. So the first key to letting go without pain is not forcing calm. It's identifying who in you is suffering, because you cannot heal what you cannot locate. The ego says, I miss them. The psyche often says, I am terrified of being alone with myself. And there is a huge difference between missing someone and being afraid of your own inner room. One is grief, the other is avoidance. When you confuse them, you treat the wrong problem, and you end up stuck. Here's the paradox Jung would appreciate. The more you try to eliminate pain, the longer it stays. Not because you're weak, but because pain that is resisted becomes a story, and stories repeat until they're understood. Pain that is faced becomes information, and information can be integrated. People don't get trapped in sadness. They get trapped in the meaning they attach to sadness. This proves I'm unlovable. This proves I missed my only chance. This proves something is wrong with me. This proves I won't recover. That is not emotion anymore. That is identity. And once pain becomes identity, it feels permanent. So we're going to do something more honest. We're going to take the pain apart like a watch. Not to shame you, not to dismiss what was real, but to stop your suffering from becoming a religion. Jung would call this the beginning of individuation, separating your true self from the roles and fantasies you used to survive. The second key is understanding the difference between grief and withdrawal. A relationship is not just a story you tell yourself, it is also a rhythm your nervous system learns. A message at a certain hour, a voice that changes your breathing, a presence that lowers or raises your body's alertness. Even if the relationship was complicated, your system adapted to it. It built predictions around it. So when the person is gone, your body does what bodies do. It searches. It expects the rhythm and it doesn't find it. That absence creates agitation, heaviness, insomnia, sudden waves of craving. And the mind quickly interprets that bodily discomfort as a cosmic truth. We were meant to be. But that is a mistake. It might have been meaningful. It might have been beautiful. It might have been painful. But your nervous system missing a pattern does not automatically mean the person is your destiny. It means your body is recalibrating. A lot of the pain people call love after a breakup is actually the shock of discontinuity. The brain hates discontinuity. It wants loops. It wants closure. It wants a predictable world. That's why you replay conversations. That's why you scroll old photos. That's why you stare at the last message like it contains a secret exit. That's why your mind says, one more explanation, one more talk, one more chance. In Jungian terms, the ego is trying to regain control, but the unconscious doesn't heal through control. It heals through integration. If you can tell yourself calmly, my nervous system is withdrawing from a familiar pattern, you lower the panic. You stop mistaking a chemical craving for a spiritual instruction. And here is the strange relief. When you name it correctly, it becomes survivable. Not because it vanishes, but because it stops feeling like a prophecy. The third key is Jung's centerpiece, projection. Projection is not a rare psychological event. It's a normal human function that becomes dangerous when it is unconscious. In projection, you don't only see the other person, you see your own unlived life reflected onto them. You fall in love with a real human, yes, but you also fall in love with what they symbolize. Safety, intensity, redemption, approval, status, a clean future, a new version of yourself. The psyche is hungry for wholeness. When it senses missing pieces in you, it looks outward for a carrier. It says, that person has what I lack. This can feel like fate. But often it is your inner life trying to complete itself. So ask yourself a brutal question. What did they represent? Not what did they do, not what did they say, but what did their presence allow you to believe about yourself? Did you feel chosen? Did you feel special? Did you feel protected? Did you feel finally seen? Did you feel like your life had direction? Did you feel like the chaos inside you quieted down? Because if the answer is yes, then part of your pain is not the loss of them. It's the loss of the state they triggered in you. Jung would say, reclaim the projection. If you projected safety onto them, you must develop safety inside. If you projected value onto them, you must build value from your own actions and character. If you projected meaning onto them, you must reconnect to a meaning that does not depend on another person staying. This does not make love less. It makes love cleaner. When you reclaim projection, you stop chasing people to retrieve parts of yourself. Most heartbreak is the psyche saying, I gave away too much of my inner authority. That's why it feels like you can't breathe without them. You outsourced something fundamental, your sense of aliveness. Now, a painful truth. The ego loves the story of the one, because the one simplifies life. It turns uncertainty into a single object. It says, if I can get them back, everything will be solved. But Jung would treat that as a myth you're living inside. The archetype of the one is powerful because it offers a shortcut. You don't have to face your inner emptiness if you can reunite with the object you believe completes you. But it's a trap, because even if you got them back, the inner work would still be waiting. The need would return, the fear would return, the dependency would return. And you would suffer again, maybe even more, because now you know the cost. The fourth key is to stop negotiating with the past. The mind becomes a lawyer after heartbreak. It constructs alternate timelines. If I had said that, if I hadn't said this, if I had waited, if I had chased less, if I had chased more, if I had been cooler, if I had been more intense, if I had been someone else. But the past is not a courtroom, it is a teacher. Rumination is not devotion, it is a failed attempt at meaning-making. So instead of replaying the scenes, extract the lesson. Ask, what pattern did this relationship reveal in me? Not what they did wrong, not what I did wrong in a moral sense, but what structure inside me got activated. Did I choose someone emotionally unavailable because it felt familiar to earn love? Did I shrink myself to keep the peace? Did I overgive because I feared being replaced? Did I tolerate disrespect because I was afraid of starting over? Did I confuse intensity with intimacy? Did I confuse chemistry with compatibility? Did I confuse being wanted with being loved? These questions can hurt, but they produce something rumination never produces, wisdom. And Jung would say, wisdom is not thinking better. Wisdom is living in alignment with your deeper self. Once you extract meaning, your psyche no longer needs the loop. The loop ends when the lesson lands. The fifth key is meeting your shadow. People hear shadow and think it means something dark or bad. Jung meant something more practical. The shadow is the parts of you that were denied, underdeveloped, or banished because they didn't fit the identity you believed you needed to survive. Relationships are shadow factories. They expose you. They activate your hidden fears and your hidden strengths. When a relationship ends, shadow material erupts because the structure that helped you avoid yourself collapses. Some people become furious after a breakup because they had suppressed anger to appear lovable. Some become obsessed because they had suppressed emptiness. Some become numb because they had suppressed grief for years. Some become desperate because they had built their worth on being chosen. The pain intensifies when you treat these parts like enemies. But the shadow is not your enemy. It is your neglected life asking to be integrated. So one of Jung's most powerful invitations is this. Instead of asking, "How do I stop feeling this?" ask, "What part of me is demanding attention through this feeling?" If you are jealous, what does that reveal about your insecurity? If you are enraged, what boundary was crossed? If you are ashamed, what story do you tell yourself about your value? If you are terrified of being alone, what part of your inner world feels unsafe to inhabit? Letting go without pain is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming whole. Because when you are whole, loss hurts, but it does not break you. It becomes a wound that heals into strength instead of a wound you carry like a label. The sixth key is separating love from attachment. Attachment says, "Without you, I am incomplete." Love says, "I want your good, and I want my good too." Attachment panics. Love grieves. Attachment tries to control. Love respects reality. If you tell yourself, "I can't live without them," that is not romantic. That is your inner structure collapsing. That collapse is not a personal failure. It's a signal. You need to rebuild inner support. Jung would say many people don't fall apart because the person left. They fall apart because the person was holding up a part of their psyche that they never built. The relationship was a scaffold. When it's removed, you see what was unfinished inside you. That can feel humiliating, but it's also liberating because now the blueprint is visible. So the question becomes, what were you using them for emotionally? Not in a cynical way, in an honest way. Were you using them to feel worthy, to feel safe, to feel exciting, to feel chosen, to feel significant, to avoid your own thoughts, to avoid your own grief, to avoid facing your life direction? The more honest you are, the less pain you experience, because pain thrives in fog. Clarity cuts it. The seventh key is ending the inner relationship. People think letting go is external, unfollow, block, delete, avoid the places. That can help. But the real relationship continues inside. You have an inner image of them, their voice in your head, their approval, their rejection, their imagined return, their imagined new life. That inner image becomes a judge that runs your mood. If you imagine them happy, you collapse. If you imagine them with someone else, you feel replaced. If you imagine them missing you, you feel relief. If you imagine them indifferent, you feel humiliation. This is not their power. This is your psyche using the inner image as a regulator. Jung's solution is not to pretend the inner image isn't there. It's to confront it with dignity. You don't need anything mystical. You need honesty. You sit quietly and you speak to the inner image as if you are closing a contract. You say what you never said, not to change them, but to release yourself. You name what you received, what you lost, what you learned. Then you end the authority you gave them. You say, "You do not get to define my worth anymore." You say, "You do not get to decide my future." You say, "I release you from the role of saving me, and I release myself from the role of chasing you." This can feel strange the first time, But the psyche understands acts of closure more than it understands logic alone. The goal is not to erase memory. The goal is to remove the inner judge. The eighth key is refusing the quick relief trap. After loss, the mind searches for a replacement like a starving person searching for sugar. It says, find someone else. Prove you're desirable. Make the pain stop. But quick replacement often extends pain because it avoids meaning. Jung would warn that what you don't integrate, you repeat. Not because the universe punishes you, but because your unconscious is consistent. It will keep presenting the same pattern until you become conscious of it. So if you keep getting drawn to the same type of person, the question is not, why are all people like this? The question is, what part of me is loyal to this pattern? Are you loyal to the chase because the chase feels like love? Are you loyal to unavailability because it keeps you in a familiar emotional climate? Are you loyal to saving others because it distracts you from saving yourself? Are you loyal to chaos because calm feels empty? Letting go without pain is often letting go of the pattern. When the pattern releases, the person stops haunting you. Not because you stop caring, but because the hook is gone. The ninth key is treating longing like weather, not prophecy. Longing is a sensation. It rises, it falls, it changes. The ego turns longing into a command. Text them, check their page, drive by, ask a mutual friend. One last message for closure. But longing is not an instruction, it is energy. If you can learn to witness longing without obeying it, you become free. And freedom reduces pain because you stop being dragged. This is one of the most important lessons in the paradox garden. Your mind becomes peaceful, not when you feel nothing, but when you stop treating every feeling as a king. When the wave hits, late at night, early in the morning, in the quiet moments, do this. Name it. Longing is here. Breathe. Don't narrate, don't predict, don't conclude, don't invent a future. Let it be present without turning it into a story. Then do one grounded act. Drink water, wash your face, step outside, write a paragraph, clean a small space, stretch, call a friend, take a walk. You're teaching your nervous system something vital. I can survive this wave without self-betrayal. That lesson is more powerful than any romantic hope. The 10th key is ritualizing closure in a way your unconscious respects. The unconscious does not speak fluent rationality. It responds to symbols and actions. That's why repeating, "I'm over it," doesn't work. Your body doesn't believe slogans. So create a closure ritual that is clean and grounded. Write a letter you will never send, not to blame, to complete. Put the objects that keep you living in the past into a box and place it out of reach. Change a routine that ties you to them, not as punishment, as liberation. Mark a boundary. This is the day I stop visiting that story. The psyche needs a marker, otherwise it treats the relationship like an open tab in the brain, constantly consuming energy. Now here's where the title of this video becomes serious: letting go without pain. Is that even possible? In a strict sense, no. If you loved, you will feel something. The goal isn't to feel nothing. The goal is to remove unnecessary pain. The pain created by resistance, fantasy, obsession, and self-abandonment. We're not eliminating grief. We're eliminating the extra suffering you keep adding, often without realizing it. So, let's make this even more practical with 10 inner keys you can carry like a map. And I'll keep them as a flowing path, not a checklist, because your heart doesn't heal by counting. It heals by understanding. First, stop asking, "How do I get them back?" and start asking, "What part of me believes I need them to be okay?" This question is the doorway to inner authority. Second, recognize withdrawal for what it is, a nervous system searching for a familiar pattern. Your craving is not proof of destiny, it is proof of conditioning. Conditioning can be changed. Third, name the projection. What did they symbolize for me? Then reclaim it as your own task. safety, worth, excitement, meaning. Fourth, stop negotiating with the past and extract meaning. Ask what pattern you participated in. This is not self-blame. This is self-knowledge. Fifth, meet your shadow with respect. The emotions that flood you are often parts of you that were suppressed. Integrate them rather than demonizing them. Sixth, separate love from attachment. If you can't imagine life without them, the work is to build inner structure, not to chase a person. Seventh, end the inner relationship by removing the inner judge. Close the contract with the inner image. Eighth, refuse quick replacements that avoid the lesson. If you don't integrate, you repeat. Ninth, treat longing like weather. Feel it without obeying it. This is emotional sovereignty. 10th, create rituals your unconscious understands. Mark the ending with a real act, not only a thought. Now, I want to go deeper into the Jungian heart of it, individuation. Jung believed the goal of life is not to be perfectly happy all the time. The goal is to become whole, and heartbreak, as brutal as it is, can accelerate wholeness if you don't waste it. Because heartbreak forces you to confront what you are avoiding. It forces you to confront your dependency. It forces you to confront your self-image. It forces you to confront your fear of solitude. It forces you to confront the question, who am I when I am not being chosen? That question can terrify people, but it's the most liberating question you can face, because the moment you answer it with lived action, the world changes. Not instantly, not like magic, but steadily, like a foundation being poured. And here's a truth people don't like hearing. You can miss someone and still let them go. Missing is not a reason to return. Missing is a sign you're human. The mistake is turning missing into a command. You can love someone and still accept that the relationship is not the right structure for your life. Jung would say, wholeness requires sacrifice. Not sacrifice as suffering, but sacrifice as choosing reality over fantasy. The ego wants the fantasy because fantasy protects you from grief. Fantasy says, one day they'll realize. One day they'll come back. One day it will make sense. But reality says, this is what happened. This is what is. And reality is painful at first, but it frees you. Fantasy comforts you at first, but it enslaves you. So if you want to let go without pain, you choose reality. You choose the clean pain that heals, not the dirty pain that repeats. What does clean pain look like? Clean pain is when you cry without turning it into a verdict on your worth. Clean pain is when you feel the ache without texting for relief. Clean pain is when you remember them without stalking their life. Clean pain is when you accept that something ended without making it mean your life is over. Clean pain is grief with dignity. Dirty pain is when you keep reopening the wound to avoid the emptiness of healing. Dirty pain is when you beg for closure from someone who can't give it. Dirty pain is when you punish yourself with comparisons. Dirty pain is when you live in the imaginary courtroom of if only. Dirty pain is when you keep feeding the inner image as your judge. Most people are not afraid of grief. They are afraid of the emptiness that comes after grief, because emptiness feels like death to the ego. But emptiness is also space, and space is where your life returns. Jung would say, do not confuse emptiness with meaninglessness. Emptiness is often the psyche clearing out what no longer fits so something truer can be built. When you stop clinging, you feel the room inside you. At first, it's terrifying. Then it becomes peaceful, then it becomes creative, then it becomes a new kind of love. Love that is not desperate. Now I want to give you a scene you can use when the mind tries to drag you back. Imagine your inner world as a garden, and the relationship was a vine that wrapped around everything. It gave beauty, it gave shade, it gave intimacy. But it also took over. It wrapped around your identity, your routines, your future, your sense of self. When the vine is cut, the garden looks empty. Not because the garden is dead, but because the vine was occupying so much space that you forgot what else could grow. Your task now is not to reattach the vine. Your task is to replant your garden. That means rebuilding your life in concrete ways, reconnecting with friendships you neglected, returning to interests you muted, restoring your body through sleep and movement, restoring your mind through learning and structure, restoring your spirit through quiet time and honest prayer, if that's part of your life. Not to be productive, but to rebuild inner ground. Because here's the thing, people often try to let go with thoughts alone. They want a mental solution to an emotional problem. Jung would remind you that the psyche is embodied. You cannot heal the heart without involving the body. You cannot heal attachment without changing routines. You cannot heal longing without creating new rhythms. Your brain needs evidence. Evidence comes from lived behavior. So when you wake up and your first impulse is to check their profile, do one thing first that serves your future. Make your bed, drink water, step outside, write one paragraph about what you learned, do a short walk. Then later, if you still feel compelled, pause and ask, is this action love or is this withdrawal? If it's withdrawal, don't obey it. That's not willpower for the sake of willpower, that is self-respect. The end game is not to stop caring. The end game is to stop bleeding. And now I want to bring the title back with full honesty. 10 Keys to Letting Go of Someone Without Pain. The without pain part is not about becoming numb. It's about removing the second arrow. In old wisdom traditions, they say, the first arrow is what happens. The second arrow is what you do to yourself afterward. Jung would translate that into psychology. The event is the loss. The suffering is the story you attach to it. Remove the story, and you still feel the loss, but you can breathe. So here's the final turn of the video, and it's the most important. Letting go is not something you do to the relationship. It's something you do to your inner attachment to an identity. You stop being the person who needs that specific approval. You stop being the person who needs that specific future. You stop being the person who confuses being chosen with being worthy. You become the person who can be alone without being abandoned. And once you reach that point, a quiet miracle happens, not a mystical miracle, a psychological one. You still remember them, but the memory stops grabbing your throat. You still feel tenderness, but it doesn't command you. You still have moments of sadness, but they pass like weather. And then one morning you realize the most shocking thing. You're okay. Not because you replaced them, not because you erased them, but because you became more you. Now I want to hear from you in the comments, because this is where philosophy becomes real life. What do you think hurts more? Losing the person, or losing the version of yourself you were when they were there? And which of these is hardest for you to release right now? The memories, the hope, or the identity you built around them? And if you want more Jung-inspired, reflective videos like this, please subscribe, hit like, and leave a comment. It genuinely helps keep the Paradox Garden alive, and it helps these deeper ideas reach the people who need them most.